I was on White Street and the bicyclist came from my left on Beacon, which would be a westerly direction. Strike that easterly direction.
Are you familiar with RSA 26686?
That's the one I utilized to summons for a flight required, yeah.
And what is the classification of that RSA? Is it a violation? Or is it a crime? A motor vehicle infraction?
As far as I know, it's a motor vehicle code.
But a bicycle is not a motor vehicle, correct?
I guess by statutes, fine that way.
A motor vehicle without a motor?
I don't know what your question is.
I'll move on. Are you familiar with the fact that the RSA mandates that a red reflector be on the rear of the vehicle, visible from a distance of 300 feet, when exposed to the upper beams of headlamps from a motor vehicle within that distance?
If you're reading that from the RSA, then I'll agree with you, but...
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Alright, so did you notice anything wrong with So you approached the bicyclist from the rear and you didn't notice anything wrong with the rear red reflector that you allege. You haven't testified to anything defective with that today, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you were either perpendicular or to the rear of the bicyclist for the entirety of the time that you testified they were bicycling?
When I saw them, or when I came upon the three of you?
In either case. In each case.
In each case? The bicyclist would have been to my left, going right. Then I would have been behind them. And then I would have just kind of next to you once the stop was effective.
Okay. So, by your testimony, you were pretty close to the end of White Street for the entirety of your witnessing of the bicycling.
I don't think I understand the question.
You said you were traveling on White Street. You must have been pretty close to the end of White Street if you can see down Beacon Street.
Yes.
Okay, so you're traveling slow, traveling fast.
I'm not sure what my speed was.
When you came upon the scene, you said that an individual was on the ground.
I don't know if he was actually on the ground, he was kneeling, or what his position was. But there was obviously a problem with the bicycle, like he had fallen. That was my initial observation.
Okay, so when you arrived around the corner on Rumford Street, you would observe that somebody was already on the ground and maybe getting back up.
Yes.
But that his bike was disabled and the chain may have been snapped.
I don't know if it was snapped, but I just think I remember the chain was off. The sprocket's going to keep us recalibrating, getting that chain back on.
Okay, and nobody was riding their bikes at the time that you arrived on the scene?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So at no time while I was bicycling, you were within 300 feet to the front of my bicycle?
I don't know what the measurements would be. I don't know, but to see you were at the end of White while you're coming down Beacon, I could gauge 300 feet. It's probably well within that.
Okay, and you testifying to, or were you in the parking lot of White Park at any time prior to traveling on White Street?
I don't remember. That's if I pulled out of there or if I was just on White Street. I don't recall.
Okay, so you may have observed the bikes for the first time when you were in the parking lot of White Street. You don't believe that you did?
No, I didn't see them there. I saw them when I was coming to the end of White at Beacon.
So you never used your spotlight to better illustrate where the bicycles were?
When?
At any point before, while observing the people on the bikes?
I don't remember that. I don't remember if I used it or not.
So you may have used your spotlight while people were on bikes traveling on Union Street.
I don't recall that.
Do you remember where I was standing relative to the person on the ground when you arrived on the scene?
I don't.
When you arrived on the scene, how long was it before you got out of your vehicle?
I don't know.
After you exited your vehicle, did you reposition it at any point over the course of the encounter?
I don't recall if I did or not.
Are you aware that the course of the events were recorded that evening?
You said you recorded.
Are you aware that there are also video recordings of the course of the events?
Am I aware of it? No. But you said you were, so I'm going to guess that there is.
Okay. So you were aware that I was audio recording, but you didn't realize when I was then holding up the camera and video recording?
I don't know what you were doing. You had a phone.
Drawing attention to the, you made a, excuse me. You remember two other individuals being present that night, correct?
There were 3 total.
Okay, and you said that they left unharmed after you observed that they had proper equipment?
Yeah, I asked him if he was okay, so yeah, fine.
And you never detained them at any point?
Detain them? Other than to stop and check on him, make sure he wasn't injured, get hurt, needed any type of medical assistance.
Do you consider that a detention?
To render service? No, I don't.
Could you describe the equipment that the other bicyclists had?
No.
Do you remember, you said that they had proper equipment, so what were you checking for?
Lights and reflectors.
Okay. And you allege that nobody had defective rear reflectors, correct?
No, you said that.
Okay, you don't recall, you don't testify to anybody having defective rear reflectors?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay. Do you allege that I ever had a defective rear red reflector?
No, we didn't write you a ticket for that.
Okay. So, what did you observe about the lights on the other bicycles? Were they fixed to the bike?
I don't recall.
Were they handheld lights?
I don't recall.
Were they cell phones?
Wasn't focused on the other bikes.
You weren't focused on those bikes. So, they got less of an inspection as to what light they had than my bike got?
No, I knew a bike didn't have a light, and that was your bike. So that's why I focused on you. Can't watch all 3 people at the same time.
Did you notice any saddlebags or compartments on any of the bicycles?
I don't recall.
So there may have been a pouch affixed to the handlebars of one of the bicycles?
I said I don't recall.
And the small pouch could be the right size to fit a bicycle light into, correct?
Are you asking me if there's a light inside a bag that I didn't see?
I'm asking you if a light could potentially be in a bag that you didn't see.
I don't think I understand that question.
So you don't know if there was a bag that may have been big enough to hold a bicycle light
On your bike?
don't remember about a saddlebag or any of the phone? How long was it after you exited the vehicle that you became aware that you were being recorded?
After you told me. I don't know that time frame.
Do you remember who engaged who first?
Meaning, I don't know the
Who engaged in conversation first?
I don't know.
Okay, so I may have began the conversation with my audio recording.
You might have.
Have you received any training in dealing with subjects recording?
Have I received any training? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that's not something that's reviewed in New Hampshire Police Standards of Training?
I don't know. I went to the academy, it was 13 years ago.
Do people have a right to record the police?
Sure.
How do you feel about being recorded?
Your Honor, objection. How this officer feels about being recorded is not relevant to whether or not Mr. Ian's bicycle had a headlamp on it, which is why we're here before the court today.
How are you tying that into the relevance of the stop?
I believe that it is relevant because of a prior instance in which I had with Mr. Pearl less than a year prior in which he responded violently to my recording.
And how is that related to this stop? What is it that you're trying to tie together?
Relating it to the stop is it demonstrates an animus for recording, and especially the testimony he's given so far that he didn't get a good look at the other bikes, he was focused on this bike, shows that he was maybe drawing attention to the audio recording aspect, and that seemed to be why he issued the citation that he did.
I'll allow a few more questions, but it is getting pretty far afield of the charge, which is did you or did you not have the headlight? So I'll allow a few more questions, but then it really is getting far afield.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you recall myself asking for your name?
I believe so.
Do you recall how many times I asked for your name?
No?
Did I ask more than once?
I don't recall.
Did I ask more than twice?
I don't remember. How many times you asked me my name?
And you're aware that there is an audio recording of the evening?
You said you were recording, so I suspect there is a recording.
Do you feel that if you heard the audio recording, you may be able to recall how many times I asked your name?
Sure.
Okay. With permission to play for the court the recording from that evening?
What's the state's position?
Your Honor, the recording of the evening has been entered as a full exhibit as, yes, Your Honor. I believe so. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct.
Okay, so as far as whether or not Mr. Ian asked Sergeant Pearl his name, however many times again, I don't believe that that particular fact is relevant as to whether or not there was a headlamp on the bicycle. But the court does have that as a full exhibit at this time.
All right, so just to be clear, this is the recording of that night?
Yes.
Okay, so I think what would make sense, because I understand you're trying to tie some things together, but again, there is some question of really the relevance of how many times you asked for his name. However, what I'll do is you will have the opportunity to make that argument kind of as you start now closing as to how that all ties in. And you can call attention to me what you want, and then when I listen to this, I will have my notes of what it is that you want to highlight for me with your argument. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I may have asked you what for your name 3 times.
I said I didn't recall.
Okay. Did you ever answer that question?
I would guess I told you my name.
But you may not have, right?
I don't know. It's at the bottom of the summons.
It's at the bottom of the summons. Do you recall saying that night that your name would be on the bottom of the sign?
Probably.
Did any other Concord police officers arrive on the scene while it was detained?
Another unit might have responded, I'm not sure.
And that other unit that responded may have been reported as they arrived as well?
If you recorded it.
Do you recall myself conversing with another officer at the scene?
I'm not sure.
Do you recall interjecting into my conversation with another officer at the scene?
Objection, Your Honor, again, relevant regarding whether or not there's a headlamp on the bicycle.
This is getting pretty far afield. What would be the relevance of that line of questioning with respect to the charge that you're charged with?
Well, it may be something that the video would illustrate better, the fact that when the other officer arrived on the scene, I asked his name before he was able to give it to me. Mr. Pearl cut him off and said not to give his name.
Right, well, I will make note of that. I review the video.
During your time at police